I didn't believe in ghosts or anything like that when we moved into the house. Ethan and I were just excited to start fresh in our first real home, a creaky old Victorian fixer-upper in a quiet neighborhood. The price was a steal, and we figured the quirks, like the drafty hallways and strange smell of wood smoke in the air, were just part of the charm. At least that's what I told myself. The first week, it was little things. A door would creak open on its own. Lights flickered, even though we'd updated the wiring. Once I found the kitchen faucet running when I was certain I had turned it off, but I blamed it on us adjusting to the house. A 120-year-old home wasn't going to behave perfectly, right? The first night I heard the whisper, I was alone. Ethan had gone to the store to grab some paint samples, and I was cleaning up one of the guest rooms upstairs. It was faint, like a soft hiss that barely registered over the sound of my scrubbing. I froze, holding my breath to make sure it wasn't my imagination. There it was again, a faint, raspy voice, just barely audible over the creak of the floorboards. "Claire," I laughed nervously, brushing it off as my mind playing tricks. I even said out loud, "All right, old house, stop being creepy." But something felt off. The air in the room had grown cold, like someone had left a window open, even though I'd checked them all earlier. When Ethan came back, I told him about it, but he just teased me. "The house is trying to make friends," he joked, but I could tell he wasn't taking me seriously. The whispers didn't stop. Over the next few days, I'd hear them when I was alone. In the laundry room as I folded towels. In the hallway as I carried groceries. Always faint, always coming from somewhere nearby. Ethan didn't hear them, or at least he claimed he didn't. I stopped mentioning it because I didn't want to sound crazy. Things escalated about 2 weeks after we moved in. It was late at night, and I woke up suddenly feeling like I wasn't alone. The room was dark except for the dim glow of the streetlight outside. I stayed still, my ears straining for any noise. And then, clear as day, I heard it. My name whispered from the corner of the room. "Claire!" I sat up, heart racing, and flicked on the bedside lamp. The corner was empty, of course, but the air felt wrong. Dense, heavy, like something unseen was pressing against my chest. Ethan stirred beside me, mumbling, "Turn off the light," and rolled over. I didn't sleep that night. The breaking point came when I discovered the attic. We'd barely touched it since moving in, only peeking up there once to see that it was mostly full of cobwebs and dusty furniture. But one evening I went looking for a box of winter clothes and decided to check upstairs. I climbed the narrow, creaky staircase with a flashlight, the beam slicing through the darkness. It felt colder than I expected up there, like the insulation was failing. The floorboards groaned under my weight as I searched through the piles of junk. That's when I noticed a rug in the far corner of the attic, oddly clean compared to everything else. Something about it seemed out of place. When I pulled it back, I found a small trap door, almost perfectly flush with the floor. My heart was pounding, but curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed the edge and heaved it open. Beneath it was a tiny room, barely tall enough to stand in, with rough wooden walls. A single chair sat in the center, facing the wall. The floor was covered in a thin layer of dust, but the chair was spotless, as if someone had been using it recently. Above the chair, carved into the wall, was a strange symbol, a circle within a larger circle, with jagged lines radiating outward. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The flashlight flickered, and for a split second, I thought I saw something move in the corner of the room. A shadow that didn't belong to me. I slammed the trap door shut and bolted back downstairs, heart racing. When Ethan got home, I tried to explain what I'd seen, but he just looked at me like I was crazy. "It's probably just a crawl space," he said. "You're overthinking it." That night, I heard the whispers again, but this time they weren't faint or distant. They were right next to me. They didn't just call my name, they were begging. "Come back. We've been waiting. Claire." The voices overlapped, male and female, old and young, all speaking at once. I grabbed Ethan and shook him awake, but he swore he didn't hear anything. His dismissive attitude made me furious. The next day, I refused to go back into the attic, but the house didn't care. It found me wherever I went. The whispers started following me during the day. I'd hear them in the bathroom, in the kitchen, even in the car. I tried to ignore them, but they were getting louder, more demanding. Sometimes I'd feel a cold breath on my neck, like someone was standing right behind me. I'd turn around, but there was never anything there. The final straw was the dream, or at least I think it was a dream. I was back in the attic, standing in that tiny room with the chair. The symbol on the wall was glowing now, pulsing like a heartbeat. And sitting in the chair was something. A figure too shadowy to make out, but its eyes were piercing, glowing faintly in the dark. It raised a hand and pointed at me, and I felt a cold rush of air that knocked me backward. When I woke up, I was lying on the floor of the hallway outside the attic. My hands were scratched, and there was dirt under my nails. I have no memory of going up there, but Ethan said he found me screaming in my sleep and couldn't wake me. Now I can't escape it. The whispers are constant, and the shadows in the corners of the house are darker than they should be. I swear I see shapes moving in the reflection of the windows at night. The voices have stopped calling my name. Now they're saying something else. Bring him to us. Ethan still doesn't believe me, but I think it's only a matter of time before he starts hearing them too. Hi, Dedo. When I moved into the small, century-old townhouse on the edge of town, I was excited to call it home. The rent was ridiculously cheap, and the landlord had done a good job updating the place, blending its vintage charm with modern amenities. The hardwood floors creaked beneath my feet, and the ornate crown molding around the ceiling gave it a unique character. It started subtly. My first night there, as I unpacked, I noticed how quiet the house was. Not peaceful, quiet, like the kind of stillness that presses against your ears. I laughed it off as me getting used to living alone. Around midnight, I heard it for the first time. A faint, barely audible whisper. It was so soft, I almost thought it was my imagination. I paused my music and listened. It came again, like a hushed voice speaking just beyond my comprehension, threading through the walls. It wasn't words exactly, more like the cadence of a voice. Maybe it was the wind, I reasoned, or the old pipes. Still, it set my nerves on edge. The whispers continued over the next few nights. Sometimes they were faint, like someone murmuring from another room. Other times they sounded almost closer, moving through the walls as if searching for something, or someone. On the fourth night, I decided to inspect. I put my ear to the wall in the hallway, but the whispers stopped the moment I did. The following day, I decided to explore the house more thoroughly. Something about the attic had bothered me since I'd moved in. The narrow pull-down ladder groaned as I unfolded it, and the wooden planks leading into the dim space above felt sticky with age. The attic itself was small, with exposed beams and insulation sagging from the roof. A single grime-covered window let in weak, gray daylight. It smelled faintly of mildew and something else, something metallic. As I stepped inside, my foot hit something hard. I looked down to see a strange old key lying on the floor. It was rusted and large, like something from another era. Attached to it was a faded ribbon with the name Eleanor stitched in small, delicate letters. I shivered. Why hadn't I noticed this before? That night, the whispers grew louder. They weren't words still, but they felt insistent, as though they were begging me to listen. I hardly slept. When I did, I dreamt of a young woman crying in a darkened room, calling out for someone. Her face was pale, her eyes sunken, and her voice cracked as she said, "Help me." When I woke up, the key was on my bedside table. I hadn't brought it down. Panic bubbled in my chest, but something compelled me to stay. That evening, as I paced the house, trying to shake the unease creeping over me, I noticed a faint outline on the wall in the upstairs bedroom, like the shape of a door that had been plastered over. The whispers seemed loudest there. My hands trembled as I knocked. A hollow echo answered back. I grabbed a hammer from my toolbox and started chipping away at the wall. Bits of plaster fell to the floor as I uncovered a small door, no more than 4 feet tall. My breath caught in my throat as I inserted the key into the ancient lock. It fit perfectly. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow, pitch-black passage. The air that hit me was icy and thick with the scent of rot. My flashlight beam wavered as I shone it inside, illuminating steep steps that led downward into the earth. I hesitated, but a faint sobbing sound emerged from below. My gut screamed at me to stop, but I couldn't. I descended the steps. At the bottom was a small stone room. The walls were carved with symbols I couldn't recognize, and in the center was a rusted iron bed frame with broken restraints hanging from the sides. Shackles. The sobbing grew louder, yet I couldn't see anyone. I turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind me. The flashlight flickered and died. Then in the pitch darkness, I felt fingers brush against my neck. The neighbors found the house abandoned a week later. My belongings were still inside, but there was no sign of me. Some say they have heard whispers late at night, coming from the walls, calling out a name they can't quite make out. But it always sounds like mine.